Listeners, hello and welcome to everybody who is interested in the wonderful natural world of geography. A special welcome to all our NAMCOL NSCAS Advanced Subsidiary Geography learners in grade 12. This is lesson 3 in our series of 5 radio learning programs aimed at helping you or school-leaving learners to prepare you for your final exams. In today's lesson, we'll talk about the drainage basin. You will find this topic in your textbook, such as the NAMCOL NSCAS Geography Learners book. What do you call a boy band in a washing basin? Finally, you got it. A boy band in a washing basin is called sink. Now that you are ready to learn and have your notepads and pens ready to make notes, please move closer. There are learners whom we see struggling to answer questions on the drainage basin as a system. And for those of you, we have good news. This radio lesson walks you through exactly what you need to know so you can identify and describe the drainage basin as a system with reference to the inputs, flows, stores, and output model. Let's get started. To start with the definition of a system in general, this is simply a group of related elements or inputs working together through processes towards a common goal or output. But our focus for this lesson is on drainage systems in nature. What is a drainage system? It is a land area drained by a river and its tributaries. It consists of interconnected components such as its inputs, while its processes include transfers and flows of water, as well as the stores and outputs of the water. All of these components work together to drive the water either back into the atmosphere or down to the sea. You should be able, in an exam, to discuss each of these components that contribute to the drainage system. Here is how. We begin with the inputs to the drainage basin system, which is when the water enters the system through precipitation in the form of rain, snow, or hail. The water that comes from rain, snow, or hail are the inputs of a drainage basin. But it might surprise you to learn that another input of the drainage basin is the sun. Yes, solar energy provides the heat necessary for evaporation, transpiration. Without the water evaporating, or more accurately, evapotranspirating back into the atmosphere, how could it rain again? The next element of the drainage basin is the transfer and flow of water once it has reached the land basin. This is the movement or passage of water from one place to another with the drainage basin. Water can move in different ways within the drainage basin. It can have through flow, also called interflow, or it can move by through fall or by channel flow, stem flow, base flow, means from the ground, and overland flow. Through flow is water filtering through rocks. Channel flow is where water is fed through a channel, which could be either man-made or natural. Stem flow is where a natural or man-made obstacle stops the main water flow and forces it into different directions. And base flow refers to a flow of water from the ground, such as from a fountain. Overland flow then refers to the movement of water along its path to the sea. Those are the inputs of water to a drainage basin system. But processes such as infiltration and percolation are also parts of flows and transfers within the drainage basin. Learners should be able to identify these flows from diagrams of drainage basin given in an exam. There are also stores in a drainage basin. The storage of water in a drainage system is the third component. Stores refer to where and how the water is kept in the drainage basin for a certain time before it is transferred to another place. It could be stored by interception by a surface, in soil moisture, and in groundwater storage. Again, there are 4 types of storage of rain or precipitation water in a drainage system. They are interception storage, surface storage, soil moisture storage, and groundwater storage. We'll discuss each of them individually. Interception storage is when rainwater is retained by vegetation, by the leaves, branches, and trunks of the plants, grasses, bushes, and trees. Rainwater can also be retained or held by man-made structures, such as the roofs of buildings. Interception slows down the process of water into the ground. While some of the intercepted water may reach the ground, over time, most of the intercepted water will evaporate back into the atmosphere. The second type of storage is surface storage. This is when the soil becomes saturated with moisture, and rainwater is stored as depression storage in ponds, puddles, and lakes. The water stored as surface water will either filtrate into the soil or evaporate back into the atmosphere. The third type of storage in a drainage basin is soil moisture storage. When the water filtrates through the soil, it may be stored in gaps or spaces of the soil, in the thin soil pores below the soil surface. And the fourth type, groundwater storage, is water that has infiltrated the soil and percolates downward under the influence of gravity to fill a level of saturated rock, which is groundwater storage, something very precious to Namibians. This brings us to the fourth component of a drainage basin system, namely its outputs. When we are talking about the outputs of a drainage basin, we are simply referring to the loss of water from the drainage basin. Water can be lost through evaporation and transpiration, and we said, which are collectively known as evapotranspiration. Water can also be lost through river discharge, when the river enters a sea or lake with slow-moving water. So, with outputs, we are looking at where water, which was introduced in the drainage basin, ends up. What happens to the water at the end of all its flows and transfers? Outputs results in the evapotranspiration and in river discharge into the sea. And this concludes our discussion today about the water drainage basin system in geography. We hope our learners will now feel more confident to answer exam questions about how to identify and describe the components of drainage basins. Learners may be required to identify the inputs, the stores and the flows, and the outputs of a drainage basin in various diagrams. you could be asked to provide definitions for the various components of a drainage basin, particularly in paper 2, where the first question, question 1, requires learners to give definitions. Each term that must be defined could earn you 2 points. Your geography paper could also have a question that requires you to describe how water moves from one station to another within a drainage basin. Aren't you glad you were tuned in today? It was our pleasure too, and we look forward to giving you more advice on how to answer your final geography exam paper next time in lesson 4. Speaking to you then. Oh, have I told you how a basin plays the orchestra? After this lesson, I'm sure you know, in sync. Goodbye.
This lesson is produced by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture.